Tensions increase as the United States and China engage in a high-stakes conflict of sanctions and countermeasures in a world where economic juggernauts are colliding. The tension between these two powerful countries has reached a breaking point as some policies have an influence on hundreds of Chinese people and companies. However, China's response went beyond stern words and included tactical actions to lessen the harm. The stakes are higher than ever, from the global supply chain to the struggle for technological supremacy. What has been happening recently between these two parties, then? As you may have heard, Janet Yellen, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, met with Chinese representatives in Beijing. China then issued a statement calling for practical action to be taken about the entire sanctions problem. For a while now, the U.S. has imposed penalties on many Chinese individuals and enterprises, which has seriously harmed their relationship. When the Chinese defense minister said, "It is evident that these economic measures are harming China, and they're not simply sitting around accepting it," things then became a little tense in May 2023. They have developed their retaliation strategies. And what about that? Even now, they are monitoring the effectiveness of China's countermeasures. What were the sanctions imposed on these Chinese firms and individuals, though? You won't believe what's occurring as a result of U.S. sanctions against Chinese businesses. They are quite upset that the U.S. has added 12 Chinese companies to their export control list. And guess what? The U.S. achieved it all on its own, with no assistance from the UN. As a result, these Chinese enterprises were placed on the Entity List, a sort of export blacklist. It denotes that they can only conduct business with the U.S. with Washington's approval. And you are aware of how they got on that list? But hold on, it's not just China that's being hit by bullets. The United States also added companies from Russia, Singapore, Spain, Syria, Turkey, and the United Arab Emirates to this list for evading restrictions on the export of military equipment to countries like Russia. The U.S. then took penalties against 5 Chinese firms and 1 individual seriously in March. Their offense? Guess where those drones ended up after purportedly delivering aerospace components to an Iranian drone manufacturer? Russia is indeed being used to improve oil ships. The goal of sanctions is to sway the behavior of other nations, such as concerns about human rights, espionage, and backing Russia in Ukraine. The concept is that if you have enough economic clout, you can force the other country to modify its ways and feel the heat. The twist, however, is that these restrictions harm countries other than China. Additionally, they cause certain issues in the US. That really is a two-edged sword. When they swap out Chinese suppliers for ones from other countries, for example, these penalties can occasionally even help other nations. It resembles a trade distraction. However, there's still more. Primary or secondary sanctions are both possible. When it comes to primary, the US says, "Nope, no more imports from you." There is also a hit list of Chinese individuals and companies that the US warns against interfering with. US residents are unable to access their assets because they are blocked. There are a ton of well-known Chinese companies on that list as well. It is quite selective in what they give to China. On things like cutting-edge computers and semiconductor components, they impose some controls. All because they are concerned about China's military capabilities. Now, this gets complicated for everyone involved, including the UK, Canada, and the European Union. Therefore, they created what are known as blocking statutes. It's sort of a way of saying that they won't pay attention to what was China's response to all of these, then? In any case, this is how China has responded to the US sanctions. China created this list, known as the Unreliable Entity List, in 2020. It is for those they believe are interfering with their national security, or a few US aerospace and defense companies receive some severe penalties and restrictions. But there's more. The rules on counteracting unjustified extraterritorial application of foreign legislation and other measures were created by China in 2021, taking it a step further. According to a Chinese blocking statute, you must inform the Chinese authorities immediately if the US forbids you from doing business with another country and you are a Chinese citizen, firm, or other organization. No snooping permitted. China continued after it. In the same year, they disclosed their assets in accordance with the Anti-Foreign Sanctions Law. This law gives them the authority to take a variety of actions when another country unfairly punishes Chinese people or businesses. They can impose visa restrictions, manage immigration, and even place asset freezes. However, there is a minor issue. The effectiveness of these countermeasures is unknown. No statistics exist to demonstrate whether they have decreased the effects of those US sanctions. So, it's somewhat of a mystery, and we're all interested to see how this confrontation turns out. It's like riding a never-ending roller coaster when it comes to sanctions and countermeasures. Other people are caught in the middle as everyone fights hard against one another. As I was saying, it seems as though these two nations, or any other nation for that matter, are placing everyone else in a difficult position when they begin levying sanctions and counter-sanctions against one another. Imagine attempting to conduct business with both nations at the same time, much like getting caught in a whirlwind. There is a catch when some people and businesses attempt to maintain their composure and continue operating in both locations. They run the risk of paying penalties from the US for breaking their sanctions. A difficult decision, yes? But guess what? Some of them are rather shrewd and figure out how to get past these penalties. They collaborate with companies abroad or come up with inventive strategies to shield themselves from the effects. Furthermore, let's face it, neither the US nor China want to fully commit to these measures and run the risk of a major trade conflict. They perform it like a skillful dance to avoid serious disagreement. But this is when it becomes complicated. When the sanctioning nation, which is typically the US, regulates particular items like cool technology or essential equipment, it disrupts trade between the two parties. Consider Huawei as an example. They suffered a great deal as a result of the US denying them access to essential semiconductors. Because the US has a monopoly on such chips, there is no easy cure. Beijing has put its creative thinking to use in an effort to counteract the US penalties. While talking tough on the world stage, they are employing some blocking strategies at home. Chinese customs figures show that despite rising oil prices and smaller discounts for Russian crudes relative to global benchmarks, Russia continued to be China's top supplier of crude oil in July, surpassing its fellow OPEC Plus member Saudi Arabia. According to data released by China's General Administration of Customs on Sunday and reported by Reuters, Chinese imports of crude from Russia averaged 1.9 million barrels per day, BPD, in August, a 13% increase compared to August 2022, even though arrivals from Russia were lower than the record high reached in July. According to data from the Chinese General Administration of Customs quoted by Reuters, China surpassed the previous record for importing Russian crude oil in July. In August, China imported 2.56 million BPD on average from Russia, up 44% from the same month in 2022. According to Financial Times estimates based on Chinese customs data, Chinese imports of Russian crude oil from Russia during the first half of 2023 averaged 2.13 million BPD, helping Russia displace OPEC Plus partner Saudi Arabia as the single largest supplier of crude to the world's top crude importer so far this year. Between January and July, the leading exporter of crude oil in the world, Saudi Arabia, imported 1.88 million BPD on average. According to Reuters calculations based on China's official data, Chinese oil imports from Russia once more outpaced those from Saudi Arabia in August, which plummeted by 14% from July of last year and by 31% from June 2023. Despite being higher than in August 2022, China's overall crude oil imports fell last month compared to July. Compared to an almost record 12.67 million BPD in July, China's crude oil imports decreased to an average of 10.29 million BPD in August. When compared to August of last year, when China was still subject to tight COVID-related lockdowns, imports were 17% higher. What are your thoughts on China, and do you think they can overthrow the US economy? Let me know down below. If you want to continue to learn about business investing and financial education, we have got this video waiting on the screen for you to check out. Don't forget to give this video a like and subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.